الخطاب بعثات ممنوع يكون مرتين.
Good afternoon. It is Monday, August 18th. I'm Yumna Naufal. These are today's headlines. Electricité du Liban contract workers block roads across the country after security forces arrest several of their colleagues during a protest that turned violent in Soud. In a joint news conference with Iraq's acting foreign minister, Gibran Bassil urges minority groups in the north not to flee Iraq, adding that ISIS will be contained. And Kurdish fighters backed by U.S. warplanes press a counteroffensive against jihadists after retaking Iraq's largest dam as the U.S. and Britain step up their military involvement. Electricité du Liban contract workers have blocked roads across the country after security forces arrested several of their colleagues during a protest that turned violent in the southern city of Soud. The state-run national news agency said 2 men were apprehended when the workers clashed with the security forces for reopening a road they had earlier blocked near the company's office in Soud. It added the protesters at the company's headquarters in Beirut gave security forces a 1-hour deadline to release their colleagues. Earlier today, the workers held a sit-in at the entrance used by EDL's Director General Kamal El-Hayek in Beirut's Marm Khayil neighborhood. The workers went on an open-ended strike last Wednesday after accusing the state-run firm of not abiding by the law following indecision for the employment of only 900 out of 2,000 workers. In a joint news conference with Lebanese Foreign Minister Gibran Bassil, Iraq's acting foreign minister Hussein al-Shahristani urged minority groups in the north of the country not to flee. Some 1.5 million people have been displaced by the fighting since Islamic State's rapid advance began in June, as tens of thousands of members of religious minorities are trying to escape the extremists' onslaught. Bassil arrived in Baghdad this morning. He said that one of the main priorities of the new Iraqi government is to protect and maintain all of Iraq's minorities. He added that any displacement and immigration which lasts for a long time will never get back to normal. After seizing Mosul, the Islamic State group has advanced across the north of Iraq, pushing back Kurdish forces and coming within 60 kilometers of Erbil. Thousands of civilians fled in fear as the militants seized a string of northern towns and villages in just recent days. Progressive Socialist Party chief Walid Jumblat visited Marada movement leader Sulaiman Fanjiye in Bnashi as part of his efforts to convince the rival leaders to elect a compromise president. Jumblat has so far met with Hezbollah Secretary General Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and Free Patriotic Movement leader Michel Aoun. He is also expected to visit Kataib Party leader Amin Jmayel and Lebanese Forces Chief Samir Jaja. Al-Akhbar newspaper said that the meeting was preceded by talks between Jumblat's son Taimur and Tony Frangieh, the son of the Marada chief, at the house of a member of the Displaced Fund in Ehdin. The meeting was attended by several current and former cabinet ministers and lawmakers, as well as Marada and PSP officials. Jumblat has held on into the candidacy of Ali MP Henri Hillo, a member of his parliamentary bloc, saying Lebanon needs a centrist compromise candidate for the presidency. U.S. Congressman Darrell Issa was at the Sarai this morning along with U.S. Ambassador David Hale, and he delivered a message explaining the assistance and support the United States is providing to the Lebanese army. Take a look.
Prime Minister and with the other government leaders later today with the Speaker, I'm able to bring part of the unity message on Lebanon that the United States stands ready, willing, and will be providing additional aid to the Lebanese armed forces in support of the sovereignty of Lebanon. This is an area in which the United States has a long invested interest, in which the Saudis and other governments are engaged, and in which we're dedicated to make sure that the Lebanese armed forces has all the tools it needs in order to ensure the sovereignty and independence of Lebanon. It's really a fairly simple message that the House, the Senate, the President, the State Department, and our Department of Defense will all coordinate the assets needed to ensure that the Lebanese armed forces has the tools they need. And if there were any brief questions, I'd be glad to take them.
The Union Coordination Committee has rejected any blame for Education Minister Ilyas Bousab's decision to issue passing certificates for students who sat for official exams, saying that they had opposed the move from the start. As a response to the cabinet-backed decision, which was endorsed to counter the UCC's continued boycott of grading the exams. This is according to UCC head Hanna Gharib, who said, quote, "We are not embarrassed by the issuing of passing certificates. The step was proposed by the minister alone, but not by the UCC." In regional news, the death toll in the war-torn Gaza Strip rose above 2,000, the health ministry said, as more people injured in over a month of fighting with the Israelis succumbed to their wounds. According to a ministry statement, a total of 2,016 people were killed and another 10,000 wounded. It said that among the dead were 541 children, about 250 women, and 95 elderly men. The toll, which had stood at 1980, jumped up after a number of people died from their injuries in hospitals across Gaza, as well as in Cairo and Jerusalem, where they had been taken for treatment. Medics also retrieved another body from under the rubble in the battered Shijaya district east of Gaza City, where it had lain for more than 3 weeks. Separately, the Israeli army confirmed that 5 of 64 soldiers killed in combat had died as a result of friendly fire, but there was no immediate word on the circumstances of their deaths. Syrian warplanes bombed positions belonging to the jihadist Islamic State of Iraq and Greater Syria in the northern province of Raqqa for a second day. Regime planes killed 31 jihadists and 8 civilians on Sunday in an unprecedented wave of aerial bombardment against the group in its Raqqa bastion. The bombing continued, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, with at least 14 raids against jihadist positions. 3 raids targeted the area around the town of Tabqa in western Raqqa, and 4 hit the Tabqa military airport, the only remaining regime-held position in the province. The raids involved the use of precision weapons rather than the explosive packed barrel bombs that the regime has deployed to deadly effect in Aleppo province and elsewhere. Barrel bombs have been criticized for being indiscriminate and killing civilians. Coming up next, Missouri's governor orders National Guard troops to help restore order in Ferguson in Missouri. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching the 4:20 o'clock news. U.S. President Barack Obama told Congress that the limited airstrikes he has authorized on Iraq to retake its largest dam from militants protected U.S. interests there. Kurdish fighters backed by U.S. warplanes press a counteroffensive against jihadists after retaking Iraq's largest dam, as the United States and Britain are stepping up their military involvement. These strikes have been conducted since Friday at the request of the Iraqi government, according to Hayden. Backed by the U.S. warplanes, Iraqi Kurdish fighters retook Mosul Dam earlier on Sunday. This marked the biggest prize yet clawed back from Islamic State militants since they launched the major offensive in northern Iraq in early June. Highlighting the stakes at hand, Obama noted that the failure of the Mosul Dam could threaten the lives of a large number of civilians, endanger U.S. personnel and facilities, including the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, and prevent the Iraqi government from providing critical services to the Iraqi population. A Libyan militia spokesman says rockets targeting positions of an Islamist-led militia in the capital, Tripoli, has killed 6 people. The attack is part of a weeks-long fighting between rival militias in Tripoli, which has forced thousands to flee the country, including diplomats, foreign nationals, and Libyans. Ahmed Hadiya, the spokesman for Fajr Libya militia, says the rockets were launched late on Sunday from the Witiya air base west of Tripoli. He did not provide any more details. But a militiaman from the coastal city of Misrata says 2 warplanes belonging to renegade General Khalifa Haftar's followers took part in the attack. The militiaman spoke on condition of anonymity because he is not authorized to talk to media. Egypt has cancelled all flights to Libya, saying Libyan authorities had closed the country's airspace. A policeman was killed and another seriously wounded in northern Egypt when gunmen in a parked car fired at patrolling officers. The 2 policemen were on patrol in the Nile Delta province of Gharbiya when they approached a car parked at the side of the road. They said the car's occupants and then opened fire on the officers before escaping. Now, jihadist groups have regularly launched attacks on police and soldiers since the overthrow of Islamist President Mohammed Morsi in July of last year by the former army chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who is now president of Egypt. The attackers claim to be seeking reprisal for the bloody crackdown launched by Sisi, which has left more than 1,500 people dead. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange says he will leave the Ecuadorian embassy in London soon after leaving there for 2 years to avoid extradition to Sweden. He did not provide additional details but said he is suffering from health problems and would leave when conditions were right. However, WikiLeaks said his departure is not imminent. Ecuador's foreign minister, who sat next to him, said his freedom is long overdue. The situation must come to an end. 2 years is too long, Ricardo Patino said. It is time to free Julian Assange. It is time for his human rights to be respected. Swedish authorities want to question him over allegations that he raped one woman and sexually molested another. He denies the allegation and describes them as politically motivated. Patino said Swedish prosecutors have disregarded offers to get evidence from Assange via video conference or send prosecutors to the embassy. Nepalese authorities say they fear an outbreak of diseases as they attempt to reach thousands of people stranded by flooding that has already killed more than 100 and left dozens missing. These swirling floodwaters have even crossed into neighboring India, submerging farmland and hundreds of villages. Nepal's National Emergency Operations Center said 4 helicopters with food, emergency supplies, medicine and medical workers were being sent to the villages in the west of the country, and rescuers were also attempting to reach the villages by road. However, most of the highways and rural roads are either submerged or damaged by the flooding, preventing vehicles from passing. Thousands of people have been left without shelter and cut off from the rest of the country since Thursday in 10 districts in west of Nepal. Missouri's governor ordered National Guard troops to help restore order in Ferguson hours after police hurled tear gas to disperse violent protesters in the town racked by race riots. Ferguson has been engulfed in unrest since a white police officer on August 9th shot dead Michael Brown, an unarmed black 18-year-old. The National Guard soldiers will respond to the Unified Police Command in Ferguson, Governor Jay Nixon said in an executive order. About 3 hours before the midnight Sunday curfew, police in body armor and gas masks moved to disperse a peaceful protest that has deteriorated into mob violence. Police, supported by armored vehicles, responded with tear gas and rubber bullets after Molotov cocktails were thrown. There were shootings, looting, vandalism, and other acts of violence that clearly appear not to have been spontaneous, but premeditated criminal acts designed to damage property, hurt people, and provoke a response. Brown, just so you know, was shot 6 times, twice in the head and 4 times in the right arm, according to the New York Times. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our top stories. Électricité du Liban contract workers block roads across Lebanon after security forces arrest several of their colleagues during a protest that turned violent in Sur. In a joint news conference with Iraq's acting foreign minister, Gibran Bassil urges minority groups in the north not to flee Iraq, adding ISIS will be contained. And Kurdish fighters backed by U.S. warplanes press a counteroffensive against jihadists after retaking Iraq's largest dam. Those are your Monday headlines live on Future Television. I'll be right back tomorrow at 4:20 for all the latest. Take care.